I'm going to leave you with two quick stories. The first is that maybe a month ago, I had a leader come up to me. He was probably in his late 40s, financial services, and he said to me, and he was actually a little emotional, and he said, you know, when you asked that question, when was the first time you felt like you belonged? He's like, I don't know that I've ever felt like I've really belonged. And I got to tell you, it just rocked me because it hadn't, shame on me, but it hadn't occurred to me that a room full of leaders at that age, I sort of expected that at that point, you know, maybe they would have somehow manifested that, to have never felt like he belonged. And then we went a little bit deeper and we said, if you really think about what belonging means, to belong to a group is to what? What does that mean? It's to feel what? Accepted and safe. If you think about that word accepted, so belonging is about feeling accepted into a community, into a group, into the tribe, which again is at a DNA level for us, because from our tribal nature, if you weren't accepted into the group, it literally was a death sentence. Right? If you were not in and connected into the tribe, you could not go alone. But the ultimate form of acceptance, if we really distill it down to its core, what's the ultimate expression of acceptance? Love. It's love. Now here's the question for us to consider. Is it possible to create experiences as leaders for other people to belong if you don't feel like you belong? So if I don't feel like I belong, I can't help other people feel like they belong. And the first place I can start to create belonging for myself is to fully accept myself. To love myself all the way. And if I'm completely honest with you, as I stand before here and we started to do this work, I'd ask myself, do I always accept and love myself completely? When am I my own worst, harshest critic? All the time. Right? I don't need anybody else to tell me that I'm not doing a great job. I got that covered. Have I fully accepted and loved myself enough to create a sense of belonging for me, number one, so that I then have the gift and the opportunity to create a sense of belonging for another? Because I don't know, as human beings and as leaders, if there is a greater feeling in the world to help someone else feel like they belong. To say to someone, I see you for who you really are. I see you. And I accept all of you. That's not something that we just do in our personal lives. That is possible to create that in work. And I'll leave you with this final example. 5 years ago, I had an opportunity to watch a gentleman who is now the chairman of North America for PwC. At the time, he was just an up-and-coming senior partner. His name's Tim Ryan. For those of you who interact with PwC, you might know Tim. He gets a lot of notoriety today. And Tim was speaking to a room of 4,000 senior associates. Their senior associates there are at the 4 or 5 year mark, which in the Big Four is a huge inflection point of turnover for them, because for 4 years, so some of you know, they just absolutely grind them, 100 hours a week. And at the 4 year mark, they've got enough references and clients, and they can put PwC on their resume that a lot of times they bounce. And so they're trying to get him to stay. And so Tim comes up, and Tim wasn't intentionally trying to create a sense of belonging. He just did this because here's who he is as a leader. He shared this story with him. This is an example of creating a moment of belonging for people. Tim talked about his first day at PwC. Tim did not come from a lot of money. Tim came from a very, very, very humble beginnings. In fact, his first day of work, he showed up in a second-hand suit bought at essentially a Goodwill that his mom had bought him. Had always never felt like he belonged or that he was good enough. And he enters down into this little basement office in New York City. This is in the early 90s. Some of you were working, some of you remember that environment. In this particular office, this particular group, it was primarily men. They're in this little office. It's a July day. And as the morning is progressing on this first day, the temperature in this little office is approaching about 100 degrees. There's no air conditioning. And as Tim is looking around the room, he's noticing that as people are taking off their jackets, everyone around him, everyone, is wearing a long sleeve blue collared shirt. And what Tim knows is that underneath his wool, itchy, secondhand suit jacket is a short sleeve white shirt. Now that might not sound like a big deal, but for a kid who didn't come from much, never felt like he belonged, was not good enough to be there, the last thing he was going to do was take that jacket off and be the only kid wearing that. And so he sat there sweating under the stifling heat with this jacket all morning. And the manager in this little office at lunchtime comes over and taps him on the shoulder and says, "Hey, Tim, let's go grab some lunch." Which to Tim was already mind-boggling that this leader recognized him like, why me? Like my first day, someone wants to have lunch with me. But his manager didn't take him to lunch. His manager takes him out. He takes him across the street to a little department store, and he buys him a long sleeve blue shirt. I get emotional just thinking about it. It's not a small thing. That one act of kindness, that one act of seeing someone who didn't feel like they belonged, didn't feel like they were worthy to be there. That leader reached out and created a moment for them to say, "I see you, I accept you, you are good enough to be here, you belong here." And it changed his life. Never left PwC. He came home. He had arrived. And so my departing message to you is this. I know we covered a lot of ground this morning. You trust yourself completely. You move through life with peace, ease, and confidence to know that you can and will figure it out. 1, 2. Hierarchies and networks, they're defining everything. It's big, it's complex, but we can distill it down. You are safe and you are free. The best way you can help your people, your teams, your organization embrace more freedom, i.e. the network, is for you to claim more freedom for yourself first. You show up and demonstrate what freedom looks like to everyone around you. I'm out here dancing with my arms in the hair, like I just don't care because I'm free. And if I demonstrate my freedom, maybe you give someone else the courage to demonstrate their freedom. And when you see your version of Tim on your team and in your organization, find a way to buy him a blue shirt.